When learning to improvise over major seventh chords, a more suitable chord scale would be the Lydian mode, regardless of harmonic function. There's a lot of people that are led to believe that the major scale is the go-to scale when improvising over major seventh chords, but when trying to resolve your lines to the fourth degree of the scale, it results in a really unpleasant sound that ends up destroying the overall quality of the major seventh chord. Because of this, the fourth degree of the major scale is considered an avoid note, which means that you can play it, but you can't resolve to it. It's usually used as a diatonic approach note or a scale passing tone. However, the raised fourth, or widely known as sharp 11, sounds great on major seventh chords, and it's considered to be a chord tension or extension that adds a particular richness and color to the major seventh chord without destroying its quality. Now, it's widely known that jazz musicians typically use the Lydian mode when improvising over major seventh chords, as it contains the root, 3, 5, and 7 of the chord, along with the 9, sharp 11, and 13, all which can be resolved to. Check out how I use this over the following chord progression using simple ideas from the Lydian mode. Okay, so let's go ahead and break this Lydian mode down and see how we're going to actually put it over this chord progression. So if we take a Lydian scale in C, we've got the root, the second, the third, the sharp 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, and then the root. So this is how we're playing this, just like a major scale with a raised fourth. Now note the notes that it contains within the scale. We have the root, the 3, the 5, and the 7 of the chord that we're playing. And we also have the 9, the sharp 11, and the 13. These are the available tensions that we can resolve to over a major seventh chord, regardless of the way it functions harmonically. So if you have a one chord in a tune that is in a major key, like in the key of C, the one chord, you can use that F sharp to play over that. Okay, a lot of people don't realize that, and maybe in a sort of milquetoast pop context that might not fit, but that's more of a taste thing than anything else. But over that chord, that works, and really in a very condensed way, that was kind of the basis of the George Russell Lydian chromatic concept, that the Lydian sound was so bright and dominant that should really be the one chord. It's a little bit more involved than that, but that's the main essence of it. So the idea is that if you look at a lot of jazz guys, when they play on tunes, and it doesn't matter whether it's a sort of standard type format where you've got a lot of cadence-based progressions and it's broken down into key areas, or if it's more of a sort of modal thing or a non-functional harmonic thing, then they really sort of approach it in the same way, where they're playing this Lydian or the major 7 with the 9, the sharp 11, and the 13 on top of it over any major chord. So this is super important to understand how this actually works. A lot of this study of modes is very misrepresented in the way it's presented. A lot of the way that it's presented in your sort of garden variety YouTube lesson is more of how it relates to maybe a theory class, to just break down and show that if you harmonize a major scale, then these resulting scales from each degree of that major scale will come up with the Greek modes. But in reality, the way you apply the modes is over chords. Now, when I was at Berkeley, they didn't really use the term mode that much. They used the term chord scale, and I like that because the chord comes first and then the scale comes after. So if you say a chord scale, you go, oh yeah, the chord's important. And that's the other factor of why so many people don't understand how to play over chords, is because they try to go to the scale first to use that over the chord, and it really doesn't work that way. You got to know what that chord is. Why? Because those chord tones are the resolvable notes, the chord tones, and then the chord extensions. For bass players, those chord tones are like super important to learn first, because we're really supplying that foundational harmonic structure below. So we need to understand that, within all our creation of all our accompanying lines. So the idea here is that, and I use this example on purpose because what a lot of people do that learn the modes or try to kind of package it up to teach it in a neat way to people, they sort of say, okay, if you got a tune like Autumn Leaves, it's got like a 2-5-1-4 in B flat major, and then it goes to the 2-5-1 in the relative minor. And, arguably, there's a few knuckleheads that will say, yeah, you can just play the B flat major scale over the whole tune and it'll work. I always wondered where that came from. And at some stage when I was studying with Charlie Benakis, he explained this to me. He said this really came from the high school music system in the USA, where you would have high school jazz bands and there was no time to actually have personal mentorship in those programs. They were usually either big bands or small jazz ensembles, and it was based on performances. All the guys were readers. You had to be able to read to get into those bands. And then, the student would say, hey, how do I solo over Autumn Leaves? And due to a time constraint, a lot of teachers would say, you know what, just play the B flat major scale and you'll be okay, kid. And then some of those guys would then graduate and go to a reputable music school and learn like, wow, that's not what these guys are actually doing. When you really break it down, and a whole new world opens up for them. Now, the other thing about trying to tie everything into one scale, there's so many facets. I could do like an hour's lesson breaking down all the things that are wrong with that and all the things that'll hold you back from that. But the idea behind this concept is that if you have a tune like Havana by Jaco Pastorius, or let's take a bit more complicated tune that is based on the same kind of harmonic type structure, a Bill Evans tune called Time Remembered. There's no way you'll be able to play over that tune. And whenever people see tunes like, The Sorcerer or Dolphin Dance, or these type of tunes were kind of based on modal harmony stroke non-functional type harmonic structures, most people who've learned by the school of trying to find one scale that strings through everything and they'll just get through by the skin of their teeth can't play over these tunes, okay? So the idea is that what I realized rather quickly in my development is the jazz guys don't play where they're stringing one scale through the whole thing. So if we look at this chord progression, we've got A major 7, okay, and this goes down a major third to an F major 7. Now this is very Jaco. He liked this kind of thing, and notice how it's also like a Coltrane kind of thing, moving through the cycle of descending major thirds. Then it goes to a D flat major 7. And again, that's like, if you look at those major thirds in that structure there, that's exactly what's going on there. So I'm going A major 7, then I'm going F major 7, then I'm going D flat major 7. And then we're finishing this off by playing a B flat major 7, which is then moving down a minor third, and then it goes down a half step to start the whole progression again. Very cool. It has real overtones of Jaco in there, which is one of the reasons I chose it. So you can kind of hear the vibe that I'm also playing on the example. It's a bit sort of influenced by Jaco. The bare bones of this is, how guys like Jaco would really approach this, and others too. There's hundreds and thousands of players which are looking at it in this way. So if you look at the first idea, which would be an A Lydian over the A major 7, here I'm going starting on the 2nd and then going down to the 7th. So notice I'm creating this minor third, and then I'm just playing up the scale. So notice how If I'm just meandering around the scale all the time, that's not going to sound cool. But if I mix it with some intervallic ideas, so I've got like this minor third, now I'm just playing up to the sixth. That can be very useful, very, very effective. So I'm going, now here I've got to change into the next chord. When I was at Berkeley, there used to be a saying that was going around that Gary Burton was famous for saying, and that was that you're always a half step away from the right note. So wherever you are, you don't really have to move that much. And there's a lot of bass players, because they've learned one shape for a scale, the minute that it comes up to the next chord, they've got to move up here to that F, because that's the only way they know that shape. So if you understand it, that here is that A Lydian, but then here is my F Lydian. And if I then take that further in that position, then I'm going to get this. So that's a very cool way of looking at your scales, so you can see positionally what's close to each other. So the way the line goes is, and I go to the G, and I go down to the F, up to the A, and then to the C. So I'm sort of outlining from that second, going second, and then playing a triad, an F triad, which is very cool. And then I'm going down to the sharp 4, and then playing the second again. Okay, so that idea. Now I'm expanding that by leading into the D flat, by going up to the D, which is the 6, and then the 7 of the scale of the F Lydian scale. So that leads me by half step into the F, which is the 3rd of the D flat major 7. Now from here, what I'm going to do is play an interval of a major 3rd, and then I'm going to play down the scale. I end up here on this E flat, which is the 2nd degree of the D flat Lydian scale, and then I'm going to move again by half step into the D, which is the B flat major 7. So here we've got this going up to 3, 5, 7, root, and then I'm coming back down from the 3, the 2nd, the root, and then the 7th. And then I finish this off by going into the 9 of the A major 7 that follows it, sort of this chord we end on. And then from there I play this kind of, it's almost like a Jaco quote in a way, where he takes this sort of double stop over a major, like a major chord, and he's playing like the 9 and the 5, and then he'll like bar that and play into the 3rd, keeping that 5 ringing, and then come back down here. And the way I'm doing that is, and that's all over that A major 7 chord. Okay, so what I want you to do is get this down. It's a good thing to learn this idea. It's a simple idea. It's not that difficult. Learn this. And then start to learn this progression, transpose this actual progression into all the 12 keys. So once you learn this in every key, what I also want you to do is then try to take this progression and write some of your own melodies over the same chord progression. Just a quick heads up, guys, that the next bass foundation course that I'm running will now be starting on February the 4th, 2019. Now there's only 9 places left on this course. So if you've been thinking about signing up for this one, then make sure that you get this done now before it's too late. Just click over here to reserve your space. Also, I'm going to be at the NAMM show in California from January 24th to the 27th. So if you're around, you can catch me on the Warwick stand. If you're interested in becoming a better improvising bass player and learning great musical content from arpeggios to grooves, then subscribe to my channel now. If you like this video today, then be sure to support my channel by giving it a big thumbs up. And if you really like this video, then please check out my books, my membership website, and my Skype lessons. Until next time, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively.